Welcome to Stars, Stripes, and Stress, where on Friday afternoon the United States beat Australia 2-0 to win back-to-back World Cup games for the first time since 1930. That is crazy. It's a crazy stat. Now, before we get into the game notes, and we're going to hear from Hoy later, I want to get into the biggest question that's going to lead every show for the rest of this tournament, and that's, can the United States win the World Cup? Now, I'll let Zlatan handle that specific question, but I kind of wanted to start by looking at comparable American sports champions that may have had a similar run to kind of what we're up against. So, and before we even get into that, I also wanted to look at just past World Cup champions and biggest underdogs and see if there's anything there that's a little bit, like I said, comparable to what we're up against here. Now, starting with the past World Cup champions, there have been 22 World Cups won by only 8 countries. We would be by far the biggest underdog to win the World Cup if by some miracle we pulled it off this year. Now, just to go through the list, Brazil's won 5, Germany's won 4, Italy's won 4, Argentina's won 3, France has won 2, Uruguay's won 2, England's won 1, and Spain has won 1. And now, so just hearing that list, there's not really a lot of outliers on that list. I essentially just named the upper class of soccer across the world. You know, you might hear that list and think, well, Uruguay might be a little bit of an outlier. But you look at their championships, and they won in 1930 and 1950. And if you go even deeper, they hosted the 1930 tournament. And if you think about 1950, we're talking, 2 years post World War II, and I think the final that year was Brazil versus Uruguay. So again, kind of makes sense. You know, if you go back in history, Hungary and Czechoslovakia have a couple, appearances in the final. But, if you really dig deep into it, I think people were pretty big on those Hungary teams in the late 30s into the early 50s. Not that I've been reading a lot about those, but I've gone down a couple rabbit holes. Either way, like I said, the United States would be the biggest underdog to ever win the World Cup. So I guess with that in mind, let's move into more comparable American sports teams. Now, I think about, when I think about a single elimination tournament, the 3 big ones that come to mind are college basketball, college football now, and then the NFL as well. You think baseball, you think NBA, those are series, those are 7-game series, that's not exactly what we have here. So it's hard to really compare any of those champions to this. So like I said, I got a college basketball, I got a college football, and I got an NFL football team here. Starting with college basketball, the 2010 Butler Bulldogs, where Gordon Hayward almost banks in that half-court shot to beat Duke. If that shot goes in, So Butler was a 5 seed that year, and the United States was, I think, 17th in the world going into the tournament this year. So, that would make them essentially a 5 seed if we were going to do it as college basketball does it. It just feels like the difficulty of the path that we're up against here. So if you kind of just look back at who Butler beat in that 2010 tournament, they started out by beating UTEP and Murray State. So bam, they kind of got it going a little bit by beatable teams. And every win in the World Cup and every win in the NCAA March Madness tournament is worth celebrating and is a big deal on its own. I don't want to make light of beating UTEP or Murray State, but, it is what it is. They were expected to win those games. Then they run into Syracuse in the Sweet 16, Kansas State, and for us locals, they end up beating Michigan State in the Final Four, and then they lose to Duke. So, thinking of Syracuse, maybe Kansas State not being a dominant college basketball program as much as Michigan State would be, or when they ran into Duke. I was just going back through, and that 2010 Butler team, if that shot would have gone, feels like comparable to what this run will be for us. All right, college football. We don't have to go too far back for this one. The 2026 Indiana Hoosiers football national champions. Indiana football is about what United States soccer is. You know what I mean? These seem very, very comparable. Indiana was not known for their football, and United States is not known for their soccer. The only difference would be, by the end of it, Indiana was clearly the best team in college football. But as they moved along, it probably took until the semifinal of the college football playoff before the entire country was on board that this team is legit. I mean, I was just thinking back to when they played Ohio State that year. I think most people were expecting them still to fall to Ohio State, and they just kept overcoming each hurdle and overcoming each hurdle. And I'm not saying that when this is all said and done that the United States is going to be looked at as clearly the best team in this tournament. But, if by some miracle we were able to pull it off, if you would have asked a lot of those Indiana Hoosiers football fans at the beginning of the year, what they thought about winning the national championship last year, it probably would have been a little bit of a miracle. All right, lastly, the NFL. This one I went a little bit farther back. How about the 1999 St. Louis Rams? The greatest show on turf. I'm thinking Kurt Warner, Marshall Faulk, Isaac Bruce, Torrey Holt. So if you really look at it, I think they go 4-12 the year before they win that Super Bowl. And, there's jokes about how Kurt Warner was bagging groceries or something like that. And that he came, he had a very he rose to fame very, very quickly. But we look back on that team, and obviously they won the Super Bowl that year. We look back on that team as a very dominant team and also one that had a lot of stars on it. And that's kind of what I keep trying to lament about this United States soccer team is it seems like we are creating more stars from this team than we ever had in any past iterations of this United States soccer team. We basically have been throwing Landon Donovan and Clint Dempsey on TV. That's all we got. There's not a lot of household names. You got Tim Howard is really probably 3 on that list. But we're going to have a completely new Mount Rushmore of American soccer players once this tournament's over, I think is what I'm trying to say. All right, let's get into the game notes. Very first minute, Matt Freese makes his first save of the tournament. It wasn't much. I just thought I would mention the goalkeeping. I haven't really mentioned the goalkeeping at all during this show, and I just thought I'd give Matt a shout out. 9th minute, Dest works the right side. Nice give and go with McKinney. It gives Dest an okay look on goal, but I like that he pulls the trigger on the shot. Too often we're trying to get cute and get a perfect look in front of the goal. We just need to pull the trigger. Good things happen when you shoot. This one just happens to end up in the defender's chest. The next one could easily be a handball or, deflection. 11th minute. This attack starts by us working the ball across the back. Anthony Robinson ends up playing a great ball forward to our man Balogun, who picks up right where he left off in the Paraguay game. He beats the defender with speed to the end line. He's able to turn the corner on him. He gets that pass across the face of the goal. Pepe and Dest are both crashing in front of the goal. It's straight deja vu from the last game. It's the same spot. It's the same result. This time it's the Australia defender that's burying the ball in his own net. But there is nothing cheap from the last own goal. There is nothing cheap from this own goal. In a perfect world, Pulisic and Balogun get credited for these goals because they did everything. This is not a giant mistake by an Australian defender. Again, we did everything right on this play. 12th minute, Australia tries to answer back right away. They get this little cute outside of the foot hit from the 18 that sails high and wide. They pack the box early, especially throughout this first half. They don't get too much on offense, but this is one that was something. 16th minute, we get our first yellow card of the game. Now, to be clear, Australia at this point has about 5 soccer players, 5 rugby players, and the Mountain from Game of Thrones on the field.
Oh my God.
And this is one of the rugby players that gives McKinney a shot to the chest and he pokes him in the eye, just for good measure. And that's just how Australia plays, and that's fine, and we dealt with it. 23rd minute, Australia winger plays a very dangerous ball to the near side of the goal. Now, Alex Freeman makes a great play to knock the ball out of bounds, and we're going to talk a whole lot more about Freeman here in a second. It looks like he is one of the stars that I keep talking about that's going to come out of this tournament. 32nd minute, second yellow from the rugby team. This was actually one of their real soccer players, though. This wasn't actually one of the rugby players that got the card. There may be an argument for Balogun. He pulled that jersey about a good 18 inches off that guy's chest. If you look at the replay, and then the guy immediately falls into our player's leg and gets a yellow card. So, there might be a little complaint, and he goes to the referee and doesn't get much in return. 43rd minute, Anthony Robinson off a set piece. He finds Dest at the top of the box, and what does Dest do? He pulls the trigger, just like we talked about. And what happened? Good things happen. We get a deflection. And then you have our boy, and this time we get the deflection, and it's like a wide receiver going up in the back of the end zone, and we have we have Alex Freeman that wins the battle this time. And this is directly after he takes a shot to the head, and he was down and out for a minute. And so when I talk about, we need a little bit more American grit on our soccer teams, this is what I'm talking about. A guy takes a shot to the head, immediately gets up. There's a world where if this was the NFL, he's not in the game at this point. There might have been a little bit stricter of a concussion test done on the field. But either way, he's there, and funny enough, puts his head on the ball, almost gets punched in the face in the process, but puts it in the back of the net. And this, like I said, this is what we're talking about. It just felt like good old-fashioned American grit. We had the ball on the 1 yard line, and we just punched it in. Not to make too many football references with his dad being an old Green Bay Packer, but man, just felt good. Stoppage time right before halftime. Freeman gets going down the right side. He's feeling himself a little bit. He finds Dest at the top of the 18 for a shot on goal. Dest has been our best attacking player with Christian out, and he is just dangerous every time he touches the ball, it feels like. 51st minute, Balogun blows the breakaway. I was really, really high on Balogun after the first game. And I'm not saying, I'm losing any of that faith in him, but he did not have as strong a game today, as strong a game on Friday as he did in the first game. He made a lot of bad touches around the net where I think if he would have got a little bit cleaner of a touch, it would have been a lot more dangerous of a look that he would have gotten, and just couldn't quite, other than the first goal, he was a huge part of that first goal, but it felt like after that there was a drop off with him. 56th minute, Anthony Robinson yellow card. I think we just owed him one, just kind of simple as that. Just took one. 61st minute, like I was just saying, rough touch for Balogun. It's a great pass from McKinney, just another missed opportunity. 62nd minute, Australia resorts to flopping. This happens a few times as we move through the second half. They took a few of their rugby players out at halftime and went with more of a traditional technique of the flop and cry approach in the second half. And so you're going to see a lot of their guys rolling on the ground crying here in these replays. In the 65th minute, we try and get a little too cute with the ball in the back, and we're not able to clear it. Australia gets a turnover. And once we start playing these real teams with some real goal scorers, like I don't want to try to take too big a shot at Australia here, but like we're going to start playing some elite teams if we move through this tournament that are going to have some elite goal scorers. And turnovers like this, this Australia guy ends up with a weak shot from the 20-yard line. But man, there's about a dozen guys that could have aced that shot that are still playing in this tournament. And so just turnovers like that, we got to cut these out. This was nonsense. 85th minute, the Mountain runs over Chris Richards in the box. Australia did have a couple dangerous attacks late. They just couldn't finish them. I just keep thinking this could have looked really different, like I keep saying, if they had an elite attacker up front. 89th minute, Balogun completely loses his mind and tries to put the Mountain in a headlock. And midway through, he realizes how bad of an idea this is, and he immediately gets this grin on his face that reminds me of like a young Eddie Murphy. And he says, "Whoa, guys, chill, I'm good. I didn't do anything. I didn't mean any of this. I'm just out here having fun. I don't know what you guys are worried about." And that was an hilarious sequence of events, because you look at the Mountain and he knows, I can just break this guy's head off if I want. But he probably gets tested constantly being the 6'6" giant in the back. And so he has a little bit of self-control where Balogun does his thing. And then the Australian, the Mountain just lets him go at that point. He doesn't do the finishing move, which he could have easily done, which was probably a suplex of some sort, if he wanted to. Both guys get yellow cards. We move on. 93rd minute, Chris Richards picks up a yellow card. No big deal. We get a couple more good looks late. Just couldn't get anything to go in the second half, but we kept a clean sheet. That's big. That's something to write home about. That's something to take home. That's something to celebrate. Not a lot of clean sheets in the World Cup. We got one. Celebrate it. All right, I've got through all my game notes. I want to get into Pochettino's press conference, but let's bring Hoy in first and get his opinion on some of these things. All right, it's time to bring Hoy in to Stars, Stripes, and Stress. And Hoy, I got to ask you, I saw a lot of good watch parties out there today. I mean, it was a 3 o'clock Eastern, noon Pacific. I saw San Diego on the beach. I saw St. Louis. I saw Texas. I know we're both probably pretty lame, but where'd you watch the game?
Yeah. Well, I did not have it off, so I was like semi working and just watching it on my TV at home. It's nice to work remote. Still got to watch the whole game, so blessing in disguise.
Blessing because we won.
Heck yeah, let's go.
So, as we talked about in the game notes, United States won 2-0 today versus Australia. Again, got that first early goal. And before I start going off, actually, Hoyt, what did you think? What was your first thought? Because I've been babbling enough with the game notes so far.
So overall, definitely a tale of two halves though. First half we came out and we really dominated like we should in this game. The first half was all good signs from any fans watching. USA played phenomenal in the first half. Didn't create as many looks as we'd like, but we even talked about this in our pre-game analysis that they were going to pack the box. It would be tough to find those openings on the net, and that just showed across the entirety of the game.
Oh, you nailed
Second
that.
second half though, Australia flipped a switch. I don't know. I think they kind of found. I don't want to call it a weakness, but they did find something we are a little prone to doing, especially with how aggressive we've been this season so far. Which is not to say we need to pump the brakes on anything, but we do need to watch this game film and really dial in. They are finding this transition in the midfield right when we start pushing up, and we got McKennie, Des, Balogun, all our guys pressed all the way up. They transition quick off of that, and then we see players like Tyler Adams, Tim Ream having to cover really big space in the middle of the field, and that's when they just pack the box really quickly. And dominant teams might really capitalize on that. I think there was a couple of dangerous opportunities in the second half for Australia that could have changed this game, but just something to look out for. And like I said, it's a game of opportunities, and the teams that can capitalize win, which we did. Yeah.
You we did, yeah, you're right. Let's not be too negative. We won, and you absolutely nailed your analysis from the first game when you were talking about how Australia was going to play, and they absolutely packed the box in the first half. Like you were totally right. As I was watching it, I was like, well, we were just it was my nightmare. We were passing the ball around the outside of the 18, and we weren't really getting any clean looks at goal. Let's talk about Balogun. I know I'm struggling with how to pronounce his name.
They were calling him
He
Jerry now, right?
he went from an international, or I should say a national star for the first game, and I thought he struggled mightily today. Just he was physical in all the ways that were like unnecessary. Like you're going to get the fouls are going to be called when you grab a jersey and it's extended a good 18, 24 inches off the guy's jersey. Like that's all, like they're going to call that. And I know it's funny, he got away with the first one and the other guy got the yellow card. So that was probably one of those things where you let your kid get away with it. He's going to keep doing it and keep doing it. And so he kept doing it. He gets the yellow card at the very, very end. I know I'm skipping all around, but when in the yellow card, like the Australia player is probably pissed. Like Balogun just jumps on his back, and then the guy has to like defend himself, and he's this 6'6" giant, and so he
He's
just
just
like
staring
calmly
down at him.
he puts him in a headlock like he's his dad. I'm gonna stick on the parent train here, and he did. And then Balogun, to his credit, was just like, "Okay, I'm gonna lose this fight." I stopped. Like I'm smiling. Sorry, guys. Sorry, I didn't do it.
Oh.
But I just to wrap that, I thought he struggled today. He didn't have a dangerous look at goal. I know the very first goal. I shouldn't say that. The very first goal he was a big part of. But man, he didn't capitalize on that first game, I thought personally.
And I don't disagree with you. And I think his rating might reflect a little bit different because it's not like he was just a waste of space out there. He was a very
Hmm.
big distraction. He still drew a defender almost the entire game, just on the opposite side of the field where the ball is typically. I just thought he was a little flat footed, though. I think the strategy that they had him doing, it relied on him just kind of sitting around waiting for a ball to find open space, and then he just has to go get it. But I think he just never knew when that play was happening. So what I would like to see, and we said this before, is when we talk about verticality, it's those open gaps between the defenders and finding that instead of kicking the ball to the corners and then making a play across, which is how we actually got our own goal opportunity. But I think he actually fell asleep on that play. The pass was just a brilliant pass that led him just enough to catch up to it. He is an athletic freak, so it's not like he can't make up ground. But um, if he's a little bit more involved and a little bit more proactive, I think he can create way more opportunities for us.
And I agree with everything you're saying. I probably was a little harsh on him because he was my star. Like he was my guy. Like I was pumping him up all week. I was telling people if you're gonna bet a goal scorer for this game, like you might as well bet him. And like this was even before, and I know we've buried the lead a little bit. I talked about it in the game notes, but Christian obviously didn't play. I know that was something that as an American fan, we didn't learn about this until about an hour before the game. I would assume, everybody assumed that he was going to play. We talked about it a couple days ago on the show that I thought, either he starts and plays like the first half or maybe comes in for the last 30 and something like that. But no, I don't know what to think of it, but it did affect Balogun's role where, he played off of Christian a lot as we've been going through these friendlies and going through the first game. And now he was more of the focal point. Like, even Australia, you could tell, they kept that big center back on him. It was him and Pepe were going back and forth. I know it was a little bit different of rotation too, or a little bit different of formation too. So it wasn't exactly like it was for the first game in Australia. Like we keep saying, they really packed the box in the first half. But yeah, just didn't have the dangerous opportunities as he did in the first couple games, and so but Dest did. Not to go a different direction, but I had Dest as my guy that I ordered the jersey for. Like he was my number one guy coming into this tournament, and now that the dust has settled a little bit on all these, I think I made the right decision. He looked really good today.
Yeah, Dest is my man of the match. I know he struggled in the second half with a couple poor passes, and I think his legs just kind of gave out on him during the heat. But with how much he actually participated and did for the offense in that first half, I don't blame him. He was kind of the workhorse on that right side. The ball kept going through him. Honestly, our only real scary opportunities look like they came from him. A couple drives inside the box, which I think there's a lot of strikers that would have just taken the fall on that, where he did
I know
that
which
little
one you're talking
1-2
about.
punch
We
with
talked about it.
McKenny.
We talked about it in
Um,
the game notes. Yeah, I know exactly which one you're talking about. I it's one of those things where I agree and I don't agree because that's like a mental state of mind. Like he had it in his mind he was going to be a bulldog and go get that goal. And like
oh, and I
you've
respect him
played
for
with
it.
yeah, that's what I mean. You've played with guys like that, and it's hard to turn that off. And once you turn it off, then it gets a little iffy. It's like I'd almost rather just have him going full throttle and put his head down. And it's the opposite of how Balogun plays. And so and yes, it's just different. And so, but yeah, I agree. Him and McKinney had a really good kind of 1-2 game going on that right side, and that was probably our best offense today. Was those two.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, and like I said, don't want him flopping and trying to draw that PK. They're gonna come. I mean, if he lands on that just a little bit better, I mean, he could get a good cross off there too. So it's not like it was just a dead play off of that. But he also had one of the only real shots on goal, I think. Which
Yeah. There wasn't a lot of clean looks. Besides, was it Des? So the second goal. So we talked about the first goal, the own goal. It was deja vu. We were coming down that left side again, put that ball across the face of the goal again. It was straight up deja vu. It was wild.
yep.
And then the second goal, it was Des that hits the original shot, right? That gets deflected up in the air, and then Robinson comes through. I'm sorry, it's not Robinson. Freeman comes through with
Freeman.
the goal, and that was one where I had learned that trivia note a couple weeks ago, and I had yet to sneak it into the show that his dad was Antonio Freeman of the Green Bay Packers. As
Oh,
a Detroit, yeah, did you not hear you? Were you listening to the Spanish broadcast again, or you had it muted because of work?
I did not hear that part.
As a someone who grew up a Detroit Lions fan, I am very familiar with his dad's work from the early 2000s to the 2000 probably 10s, probably not quite to 2010, but yeah, his dad was a very good receiver for the Packers and probably bounced around a little bit and he plays big. He's got a big vertical. I don't want to say that changed the way I looked at him, but it kind of changed the way I looked at him a little bit after I learned that. Um, and he, you gave the man of the match to Dest, and I kind of thought maybe the same. But if you look at how the analytics have it, Freeman gets the man of the match. This site that I'm looking at here has him at 8.8. I think that's the one we're going with. He did look really good, and obviously clean sheet, easy to give a boost to the defender too. And I know you see him up on the offense a lot, but technically he is our right back. The same as him and Robinson are up a ton, and honestly, that's a fun way to play. I think we said that at the beginning. When you get your backs up like that, it kind of just tilts the field a little bit. When you get one guy up, you get the three kind of sliding in. So yeah, we have four defenders on paper, but really there's three guys back when we're attacking. It's not like we're sitting four back like some of these teams do. So, and it's shown we're scoring goals. That was kind of the whole thing when we started this tournament was, can we get more aggressive as a country that, is a gambling aggressive type of country? Like, let's start to play to our roots a little bit, and let's start putting some balls on net and just start to be flat out aggressive. And we are, and it's awesome. And man, I want to talk about Pochettino a little bit because I've been on him big time. You know me, I've been loving on him. But oh man, the love fest has started for Pochettino. Did you? I think I texted you, and I think I know the answer. But you missed the post game press conference, right? On the field, he's standing on the field. They got all those advertisements in the background. You know what I mean? How they do that at
Oh,
soccer always.
yeah, I didn't watch any
You
of
missed that one.
that.
Okay, so he's getting interviewed by, I think her name's Jenny Taft or whoever it is, one of the main broadcaster for Fox. She's doing the sideline reporting. And she's trying to ask him questions, and the whole stadium's doing the
They're chanting
Pochettino.
your name, Mauricio Pochettino. What does it mean to you?
And in the middle of it, like, he just stops every now and then. Like, she'll be talking, and he's just waving to the fans. And I think part of it is his English is a little rough, so it's just like, I'm just gonna play this up to the camera. But he was basking in it. And then on top of that, I think he did the side French kiss to every, I think their board members, whoever United States Soccer, like people are on the field. Like, it was more than assistant coaches. Like, it was everybody on the field. And he was hugging, kissing, singing. I don't even know if he knew the American songs that he was singing. Like, I think he learned Country Road a couple days ago. But oh my gosh. Like, it was for me, it might have been a little much. Like I keep joking about how the Knicks celebrated that championship early. Like, whoo, this was like, he was almost in tears. I don't know what to say.
It's like Victor Wembanyama after he won the Western Conference.
How do you feel about this basically 2 weeks before we play another meaningful game?
We're a shoe in for first place, so then we can rest our guys. And I mean, we already saw Pulisic missed a game, so we don't want any injury issues as well, like some of these other teams have, like Canada yesterday, losing one of their key guys.
So I do think, on that note, I know we've bounced around on being good about the rules and being okay with the rules. So even if any of the guys that got a yellow card today get another yellow card on Thursday versus Turkey, they won't miss the round of 32 game. So that
Okay.
but it starts over where, like, I think like those first three games as we move along the knockout stage, like, those add up too. So if you got one in the round of 32 and you got one in the quarterfinal or in the, yeah, whatever that would be, the round of 16, is that the quarterfinal? No, I'm getting too, guys, there's so many knockout rounds now. This is crazy. This tournament is huge. This tournament's huge because the quarterfinal would be with 8 teams. So yeah, it's round of 32, round of 16,
Same.
quarterfinal, semifinal,
Yep.
final. Yeah. Oh my goodness. So maybe to your point, yeah, let's just get healthy.
Yeah. Well, also, I mean, like, there's always the chance of a red too, a straight red. You don't just, you just got to see what the matchup looks like, really play the field. But yeah, I do think there is a world where we got to take this game seriously, and we can't just be starting to pump the brakes here. We got to keep our heads high. Honestly, I do think sending a strong message to Turkey is actually also in our favor too. So far in this game, I don't think we sent the message across that we are in the elite. It's not quite the same message that we put against Paraguay. I know we didn't have Pulisic, but when you're talking about these European teams, and we know all these teams are chattering behind the scenes, there's a lot of smack talk and a lot of pride. We need a big one here.
Let's start. I want to just hit some of the individual players a little bit. Starting from the back. So Tim Ream and Chris Richards, they've kind of solidified themselves. That's a pretty good center back duo at the moment. Chris gets up on the free kicks. Ream stays back. Both strong. I've just been impressed. I know when we first started this tournament that I wasn't familiar with who our starting defense was going to be, and now it's obvious. Like there's not going to be a substitution for those back four. I actually would assume that we just roll with them, and those guys start versus Turkey as well. I think the subs will come in the midfield and in the forward position, but Robinson, Ream, Richards, and Freeman, I think that stays through this whole tournament unless someone gets hurt. Agree? Disagree?
Oh, and I don't expect anything to change. I wouldn't want anything to change. The only thing that I've noticed, especially in this Australia game, is when you have strikers that are going up against um, our back line, they do need to communicate because it seemed like Tim Ream had to do a couple switches on some of the from some of the faster guys. Chris would come across the field and then he would kind of leak back and try to take the back post and watch out for any of the cutters. But uh, with some of these players with high speed, you gotta watch out. You gotta watch out. And we've talked about this communication. I think Australia in the back half of the game here kind of found some weak spots, and we just got to tighten some of that up.
Yeah, they did. And so I kind of blew past that a little bit. So first half, I wouldn't say we dominated, but we looked very good. And Australia was packing the box and it just didn't work. We got out 2-0. And so and part of the change in the World Cup strategy is with these 5 subs, you can legitimately turn your formation over with 3 or 4 subs at halftime or using one of these commercial breaks. I'm not going to call them hydration breaks from now on. They're commercial breaks. You can do a full on line change. You get 3 or 4 subs in, you can go from a formation that packs the box to 3 forwards up top and like more speed in the midfield. Which is what they did. And, I would assume an Australia fan's going to look at that second half and be like, well, crap, why didn't we do this the whole game? To your point, I know you were texting me about Korea the other night. Like, why did we not, like, why are we trying to tie this game? Like, let's play our game. I would assume Australia probably thinks the same thing, right? By the way they played that second half.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't see why, especially when you know that like you're not guaranteed if you're third place, you're making it out. Like
Mm-hmm.
like you not every third place team is making it into this next round. So I don't see why any of these teams are just trying to tie out any of these games at this point in the stage unless you've already clinched.
I try to get under your skin there a little bit, bringing Korea into it. I know you don't want to talk
Oh,
about it.
I know. That's a subject. Let's not make me cry again.
Oh, it seems like it's meant to be for the host countries a little bit. I know the Canada guy broke his leg, but Mexico, United States, Canada dream starts. I mean, that's 6-0, right? And then nobody's lost, right? I think
Yeah.
everybody's won all their games. That's
hmm
wild. That's wild. Okay, keeping going through the United States midfield now. McKinney, Tillman, and Adams. Again, we might see some subs for this last game, just to get McKinney and Adams have both. And I think all 3 of those guys have played every minute of these first 2 games. Yeah, maybe somebody came out at the end here, but they've played majority of the minutes for these first 2 games. And I would assume round of 32 comes around, that's our midfield right there. I mean, those guys have solidified themselves as the starting midfield for the United States, maybe for a little bit for the future. Like, this looks solid.
Oh, absolutely beautiful midfield play. I love how they're moving up and actually playing with the wings, and they're creating so many opportunities, but still somehow able to get back enough where we're able to cut some of these defenses off, or play defense and cut some of these transition plays off, and it's just phenomenal.
Tyler Adams is more of a ball winner than I would have thought at his size. Like, he really, a lot of times when you go to these 50-50 balls, he comes out cleanly, a lot more than you would expect, just physically looking at him. McKinney, like we were saying, has been very good with the offense. And then Tillman is honestly my favorite. And it's crazy to say that. I knew nothing about him before this tournament started. He is strong and he is solid. Kind of like I said in the last game, he hasn't scored one yet, but Adams and McKinney are a little smaller and quicker, and Tillman has a little bit more strength to him. He's a good yin and yang, like mix with that. I'm liking it. I'm liking our whole team, obviously, but like the defense, like the midfield, and then let's get into the forwards for today. So this is where, like I said, if we were going to nitpick, it might be here, but as you keep trying to remind me, they kind of had a defensive strategy to slow us down a little bit when they packed the box, and so that's going to make your forwards look a little less. So Dest, Balogun, and Pepe were the three that played up top for most of the day today. I know Dest really tracks back a lot. It's not really a clean. It really was Balogun and Pepe. I know I'm looking at how we have this 4-2-3-1 set up. It was really more today of a more traditional, what it would be I don't want to call it a 4-4-2, but really Pepe and Balogun were up top more often than not. Dest really is back in the midfield and starting the attack, even though he does, he's just kind of playing everywhere. They let him float a little bit today. He kind of took over the CP role today with Pochettino being out, at just being that guy that can float a little bit back to start the attack. If he needs to be up at the top, he can finish the attack. He is our most creative offensive player right now. You can see where, when you look at Pochettino, how he started with Chelsea, and you look at Dest, how he started with Barcelona. I guess Pochettino started in Germany, but like when he was, 22, he had moved over to Chelsea at that point, and Dest at the same age was at Barcelona. Like those two, if you were just a scout sitting in the stands for a little bit, like they pop. They do. It makes sense that these elite programs would try to get them early on. I'm seeing that now.
Yeah, he definitely has that like European elite flair with some of the creative plays he tries to go for, and hey, he's making it work. He played brilliant today. Like I said, he's my man of the match. So all the props to him. I know we talked a little bit down on Balogun, but not to take away. And I mean, he did blow a pretty easy fast break. I think that he could have put in one for us. But like I said, I think that's all part of the game plan, though, and I think I don't want to punish him too much as it was just, what the team was trying to do, and have him be more of a distraction and covering some of those center backs.
And Freeze had a couple saves. I know I blow by him. I blow by the goalie every game. I'm not giving him any love at all, which I kind of feel bad. But solid, there was one real save, I guess I would say. Probably in the stats, it's probably more, but I would say he had one real save. Like they had one shot that had a little pace to it. Mm-hmm. It was low. I mean, it wasn't. I'm giving him probably a little too much credit, but one save. Oh man, what am I missing here? What have we missed? We've kind of gone through a lot. I know we've gone through the game notes. We've gone through most of these guys. We've got a lot of yellow cards. We kind of missed the yellow cards a little bit.
We touched on that just a little bit.
Yeah.
Between the three that picked him up for the U.S., Chris Richards, Anthony Robinson, and Balogun.
We got to get you Mauricio Pochettino. We got to get you on the train. It rolls off the tongue, man. Once you have it, you have it. We're gonna get you. We're gonna get you in a room. We're gonna get you with a train. What are the people that teach how to talk? I'm
Mauricio Frappuccino. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's actually pretty good. That's actually not bad. You're like one letter off there.
Hey, but all I know is just to highlight the highs. First clean sheet by the defense in this World Cup so far. Beautiful play by the team overall. We still look elite, especially when we have Pulisic back. I'm sure that'll create way more opportunities. We're still in that top 10 conversation. We are right there with the elites. So, anything can happen.
And the stat I gave at the beginning of the game notes was, this was the first time the U.S. has won back-to-back World Cup games since 1930. I know. It's wild, right? When they said that one, or I read that one, I forget. I got to start giving credit to where I'm getting this stuff from.
That's crazy.
But I think it was an ESPN article I read that one on. Yeah, that is crazy. All right, everybody. Thank you for listening to Stars, Stripes, and Stress. Please subscribe, please like, please comment, please follow the Disgruntled Losers, us on Stars, Stripes, and Stress. What am I missing? What else they got to do? They don't got to knock on our doors, but what else they got to do? They can text us if they want to. I'm missing something, right?
Carrier pigeons, if there's any donations.
All right, everybody. Thank you for listening.
I will catch you on the next
one.
Bye.
Adios.